Welcome to the Journal Editorial Report. I'm Paul Gigot. Well, as Donald Trump continues to hold his lead in national polls and in early primary states, the Wall Street Journal reported last week that some GOP super PACs are setting their sights on the Republican frontrunner. And this week, one supporting Ohio Governor John Kasich released its first direct attack featuring some of Trump's more controversial comments.
He's not a war hero.
He's a war hero.
He's a war hero.
5.5 years.
He's a war hero because he was captured.
If Ivanka weren't my daughter, perhaps I'd be dating her. You know.
Stop it! Oh, it's so weird.
I have a great relationship with the blacks. I've always had a great relationship with the blacks.
The blacks.
Well, I just don't respect her as a journalist. You know, you could see there was blood coming out of her eyes, blood coming out of her wherever.
Somebody's doing the raping, Don. I mean, you know, somebody's doing it. You think it's women being raped. Well, who's doing the raping?
The belt moves this way. It moves this way. How stupid are the people of Iowa?
Joining the panel this week, Wall Street Journal columnist and deputy editor Dan Henninger, columnist Jason Riley, and columnist Kim Strassel. So, Kim, let's stipulate that since the Paris attacks, Donald Trump has risen in the polls a few points, it seems, in Iowa and the early states. So it hasn't hurt him. But is this kind of attack, basically saying he's not presidential, shouldn't be trusted to be commander-in-chief, is this the kind of attack that is going to work against Donald Trump?
Well, the people putting it up there are hoping that this one does work because they've tried pretty much everything else. They've gone after him for his past liberal positions. They've gone after his policy positions that he has now, things like eminent domain, which aren't necessarily conservative. So this is a new attempt, and it's to say, do you really want this guy in charge?
What do you think, Kim? What do you think? Is it going to work?
I think there's a possibility that it will. The electorate is more unsettled after Paris. They do want steady leadership. And some of the immediate things he said, I think, have given him some help in the polls. But I think as people look at this a little bit more closely, and as that ad made clear, there will be more to come. This is a new, renewed focus on bringing him down. Kim
doesn't sound very confident. This is going to work.
Well, Paul, it's interesting. This Kasich super PAC is merely the vessel for a lot of people to put forward these attacks on Donald Trump. And a lot of the people putting in money into this aren't even John Kasich supporters.
That's correct.
So there are a lot of people. I think there is some desperation on the part of the Republican Party. They fear that if Donald Trump is the nominee, they could lose in a landslide to Hillary Clinton, the presumed Democratic nominee. And it's simply because he has managed to offend so many subgroups, from Muslims to blacks to Hispanics, and the country is so diverse. The Republican Party feels it needs to be able to tap in to some of these voters come the next election, and he has just offended too many people.
But these are the quotes, Dan, that they're using Donald Trump's own words against him. But when I talk to a lot of Republicans, their reaction is, who cares what he says? It doesn't matter. What I like that he says, he's just sticking it to the man. He's just standing up to all these media, me, media elites who and standing up to him. So good for him.
Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it. His support seems to be solid at around 25%. Goes up a little bit sometimes, goes down a little bit. And I think Trump is conveying absolute contempt for the political system. And that reflects that 25%. I think they, too, have complete contempt for what has been going on in the political system and can't be moved on.
So do we sometimes.
Having said that, I think that since the Paris attacks and the elevation, again, of the war on terror and what we're going to do about it, that Donald Trump has suddenly become vulnerable because questions will be asked whether he could serve as commander-in-chief. And I believe the rise of Ted Cruz in this latest poll this week in Iowa, at the expense of Ben Carson, the one who's immediately suffering because he might not have the
commander-in-chief
to become commander-in-chief, is beginning to show that people are focusing now on substance, and Trump could have a problem.
Well, I agree. Carson clearly has shown since Paris that he doesn't have a command of foreign policy that people are looking for. Cruz is able to take advantage of it. Trump doesn't have that expertise either, by the way. He just has bluster Carson doesn't do bluster very well.
He has attitude.
Yes. So I see that. But the problem I think Cruz has is that he has managed to consolidate the most conservative elements of the GOP base. You still have more moderate elements. You still have business folks that are not satisfied with Cruz, and so he'll have to work on getting people outside of his conservative base, and that there's work to be done there.
So Kim, who else? I mean, Ted Cruz might benefit, but who else might benefit if Donald Trump does begin to slide in the polls for reasons that Jason mentioned?
Well, potentially anyone. And I think that this is why
anyone.
you see so many of the donors willing to put money into this super PAC to go after him, because there are so many people in this race and things remain so fluid. Look, you just talked about Ben Carson. He shed a few points and it went to Ted Cruz, and suddenly now people are talking about Ted Cruz as a contender in Iowa. I think all of these other candidates are thinking that if they could pull off 7 or 8 points from Donald Trump and it went to one of them or any of them, that would be their opportunity to break out. And you've seen Chris Christie up in New Hampshire. He's been very dogged in the work he's doing up there, but he's starting to have a little bit of a moment too, taking some points away from other people. So this is just still a very fluid race.
I agree with that, but I do agree with you, Kim. I think people should watch Chris Christie, because the New Jersey governor is really somebody who is trying to hit that theme of commander-in-chief, somebody day one serious, and he has a really solid, blunt manner, but not with some of the extreme statements that Donald Trump has. All right, when we come back, as protests continue to spread at colleges nationwide, is free speech the latest casualty of the campus left?